Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another episode of the Arsenal Transfer Show, joining you live from the TGT Stadium on the day before deadline day. And it is starting to heat up in the world of Arsenal transfers. Yesterday was quite a mad day for links, for news, for transfer stories and rumours and whispers about who Arsenal might potentially be signing, in combination with some pretty damning injury news, which we'll, of course, be discussing a little bit later on today. Without further ado, though, good morning to people joining us in the chat box. We've got PJ and Gooner David, and we've got GKR Rinkle, or Rinky, G Crinky. I don't know how to pronounce that. PJ, good morning to you, to Stevie, to Ratha Aries, to Anthony, Stephen and Peter and Kevin and Rich. I'm pretty sure, though, I did see some other names before in the start of the chat, but for some reason, StreamYard's decided not to give them the credit. I can give you credit, though. It's Matt G, Blackshine, Ahmed Ali, Kaiser and Carl and Paul and Olu and Vuk and Harvey and Bruce and Goku, Jose and Ans and Akshat. So many of you, for some reason, Anthony's decided, for some reason, StreamYard's decided not to show me who was actually first. Interesting. Very interesting. They're basically trying to undermine you guys now. StreamYard is trying to say that you weren't first, when in fact you were, but we've done you justice. Make sure you check out the latest prizes over at Football Prizes. This week's competition is a ticket or two tickets to go and see Arsenal against PSV Eindhoven in the Europa League. And you can also, a 24-hour competition that's available right now, is a ticket to the weekend's game at Old Trafford. Hospitality tickets, you can go and check that out. There's a 12-hour early bird price, but that will fall away very soon. Link in the description to the Football Prizes website. That PSV prize also contains as many as, looking at 10 instant win prizes. Tony Adams signed and custom framed shirt. Alexander Zinchenko signed Arsenal shirt. Ben White signed and framed Arsenal Stadium street sign. A back four of Tony Adams, Lee Dixon, Steve Bold and Nigel Winterburn all signed and framed. The 2022-23 Arsenal home, away or third shirt of your choice. And then some prizes regarding credits to the FP website. Make sure you go and check them out. We'll be doing our live show on Friday. There are tickets still available. You can make sure and you go over to the link in the description. It will take you to the website to buy it. It's only a £5 if you're available on Friday evening at the Ridley Road Social Club. Myself, James Benge, FK from Latte Firm, Harry Simew from the Chronicles of a Gooner, and Sophie Nicolau from the Hybrid Squad will be joining Mike to help support Gooners v Cancer. Have a great time and talk some Arsenal. And lastly, please do vote for us in the Football Content Awards. Vote for TGT.com. Tag us on Instagram on Football Content Awards' relevant page. You can see the picture on your screen. That's the one you need to find. And you can vote on their website. Drop a like on the video and subscribe if you're new. I will be live not after 10 o'clock, but I will be live on the whistle over on the Arsenal Way. So make sure you're subscribed over there as well. Ha! What a way to start our news stories of the day. Chelsea lose away at Southampton. Despite spending ridiculous amounts of money and despite potentially signing even more defenders, Chelsea lost another game this season, meaning Arsenal have the opportunity to open up quite a sizable gap to their West London rivals should they win tonight against Aston Villa. And it's not as if, what I find funny about this is that, Arsenal have been criticised for getting overexcited and overhyped because they've not done anything yet. They've not beaten teams that they should be beating or whatever. I'm sorry, the teams that we've beaten, there are challenges within them. Fulham are a very decent side. Look at what they've done this season. Another win for them yesterday. You look at Crystal Palace and points they've taken off other big teams and nearly gave Manchester City a fright. Chelsea have lost to Leeds and Southampton so far. Southampton and Leeds, I think, were in a lot of people's tips for relegation this season. And yet, somehow, Chelsea aren't still facing the same amount of wrath as what Arsenal have faced, despite Arsenal winning all of their games. Little bit strange, but completely unsurprising. Now, the big news of yesterday was, of course, Mohamed Elneny's injury. Despite finishing the game against Fulham, he suffered a hamstring problem that is expected to keep him out for a lengthy period of time. David Ornstein at The Athletic described it as significant. We're still waiting for information on the exact period of time he'll be out. That he has undergone scans now, but Arteta will, of course, be asked about this after the game against Aston Villa, potentially before the game against Aston Villa this evening. So we should get more information. But that has, of course, sparked the potential to move for a central midfielder in the window before it closes. But we only have a little amount of time to do that. And Arsenal weren't rushing to try and change anything. They are waiting to see kind of the extent of this problem before they do jump upon any kind of midfielder. Despite that, links have, of course, then spread about potential midfielders that we'll talk about in a second. Miguel Azeez, however, could be included in tonight's squad and left a small hint on his Twitter page that he has the opportunity to be included. He was not in the squads that played against Cambridge in the under-21s EFL trophy game last night. Neither was Marquinhos. Both of them could potentially be on the bench tonight against Aston Villa. Zinchenko did train. And interestingly, despite the interview that you probably saw on your social feeds come out with Arteta, in which he said it was unlikely that Zinchenko would be involved along with Partey, I can tell you that that interview did take place after the Fulham game and that it is quite out of date, quite a fair few days out of date. It was embargoed until yesterday, meaning that the quotes couldn't be published until yesterday. So any information upon Partey and Zinchenko is a bit out of date, hence why no mention of Elneny was in that interview either. Zinchenko has trained. There is potential for him to be involved. We don't know how available he will be, if at all, though. But I'm sure that we'll be keeping you up to date with everything going on in the world of Twitter. And I'll certainly be tweeting out anything that comes forward about Zinchenko's fitness as and when we receive any information on it. But he did train yesterday, so there is a chance he could be available. Bellerin to Barcelona is a potential move that could be happening. Supposedly, according to Gerard Moreno, this is a deal that will happen, in fact. However, there are a number of Italian sides also interested, including Sassuolo. Bellerin's future is expected to be resolved between now and the end of the transfer window. He and Ainsley Maitland-Niles are the expected two departures between now and tomorrow evening. Where they will both go, however, the final destination seems still to be up in the air, but there is a confidence that Bellerin could be a Barca player by the end of play tomorrow. Bukayo Saka is said to be optimistic over a brand new contract. He spoke after the Fulham game with quotes coming out yesterday about his kind of confidence about potentially signing a new deal with the club. He says, I share his confidence when he was asked about Arteta speaking confidently about his contract. I share his confidence, he says. I really feel at home at Arsenal. I feel love from my teammates, coaches and fans. Discussions over a new deal are continuing and there is an expectation that an agreement will eventually be reached. So fingers crossed, we'll see an announcement on that in the coming weeks and months. Marco Asensio, despite links to Arsenal, is not expected now to leave Real Madrid. Reports from Spain claim that Real Madrid will keep the player, so no movement on him to either Arsenal or Manchester United is expected between now and tomorrow. Arsenal apparently also tried to hijack a deal for Paredes before he made his move to Juventus, which is now expected to go through. Arsenal were interested in the player after the injury to Elneny, supposedly, according to Damazio, I believe it was. However, he wanted a respected agreement with the old lady and therefore he will move to Turin, and that is expected to be completed and announced very soon indeed. However, according to Goal Brazil, Danilo is still the subject of interest, a Palmeiras midfielder, and even going as far to say that Arsenal have made a £20 million bid for the midfielder. However, this will be rejected, and Palmeiras, due to the amount of time left in the window, will demand that any club that wants him to pay his 100 million release clause. I don't see that happening. I don't see Danilo moving to Arsenal between now and the end of the window. I just think it's one of those deals that is too difficult to do with the time that is remaining between, with the time that is left. So I'd be very, very shocked if Danilo was the player that Arsenal ended up getting. I won't be doing a tactical breakdown unless there is a major change in this profile. I'd be very surprised. But according to Goal Brazil, Arsenal made that £20 million bid, which does show a bit of indication that potentially we are indeed looking to try and sign a midfielder before the window closes. Melissa Reddy on Sky Sports spoke about the interest in Cody Gakpo. I am told under pretty good authority that you do actually pronounce the G, and it is Gakpo. I see a lot of people pronouncing it just Hakpo, but I'm told that it is genuinely you pronounce it with the G. I might be wrong, but I see so many variations in the pronunciation of Gakpo. I'm going to stick with the Gakpo. I don't know whether or not he will be the player that Arsenal go for. It does seem to be that the wide player that Arsenal will be going for is indeed Mykhaylo Mudryk. You can go and watch our tactical breakdown of Mudryk yesterday. We uploaded that breakdown with help from Andrew Todos of Zorya London. Gave us lots of information and thoughts around the player. So certainly worth giving yourselves a bit of an education about who exactly Mudryk is. But supposedly Arsenal are very close to an agreement. They've already agreed personal terms, and a 30 million euro agreement could be made with Shakhtar Donetsk. This will be the one, I think, to watch between now and the end of the window. So let's see what happens. He could be a very, very interesting profile of player that Arsenal end up getting. We know that they want a wide player. I think the biggest thing to consider between now and the window's close is, will Arsenal move for a central midfielder? That is the very key one indeed. Let's round things off in terms of part one. We'll carry on the show with part two and your questions after this quick break. So let's quickly just show you the prizes available this week on Football Prizes. Link in the description. You can win tickets to the Manchester United Arsenal game this Sunday and potentially tickets to the Arsenal PSV game in the Europa League. Make sure you go and check the link in the description for information. Live show on Friday in the Ridley Road Social Club in North London. If you're available Friday evening and you'd like to come along to see some fantastic guests such as James Benge, FK, Harry Symeou and Sophie Nicolau, along with Mike from the Gooners pod, then come along and help support the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society for Gooners versus Cancer. It's going to be a really great evening talking football, having chats, drinking and all of that goodness. And lastly, do vote for us, of course, in the Football Content Awards. All the information on the screen, or just go to www.votefortgt.com. Let's jump now into the chat box and tackle some of your questions. Freddie says, Tom, in your humble opinion, do you think we will sign anybody in the next 24 hours? In my humble opinion, yes. I think we will. I am optimistic. I am hopeful. I am crossing every limb. Sounds weird. I'm crossing every possible limb in my body that we will sign somebody between now and tomorrow. Who that will be, I don't want to jump, to say it's going to be this guy. It's going to be this guy. I feel as though Mudryk is the most likely profile that we would sign between now and close of play tomorrow, but that means nothing. Will Tielemans arrive? I doubt it. Will Gakpo come? I doubt it. Will Danilo arrive? I doubt it. But Mudryk, to me, there's enough kind of out there. There's enough suggestions that he is potentially someone that Arsenal could go for and get before the window closes. Lucas says, do you start Nketiah over Jesus tonight ahead of the United game this weekend? No, I don't think Jesus needs a rest. I don't think he looks tired. I don't think there's been any issue with him. If we get into the Champions League, this is something that I think people forget quite often because we've not been in the Champions League for a long time. When you get into the Champions League, you will be up against some very, very, very good teams. And you will need to play your best players more than twice a week. Potentially, as I say, at least twice a week, potentially more than twice a week. You will have to do that. And so we are going to have to get into the swing of playing Jesus twice a week. So if we have got a game on Saturday and then Wednesday and then Sunday, Jesus should play in those games. It might be that you sub him off earlier in the game to conserve fitness, but absolutely he starts. And Nketiah does not start this game. Mo says, morning, Tom. With injuries we have in midfield, do you feel we can manage with what we have available as replacements or need to buy at least one midfielder? I think that we absolutely need to make sure that we sign a midfielder. Will we? I don't know. But I think that we absolutely have to add a midfielder to the team this summer, or at least in January. I think January is an opportunity for Arsenal. I think we could potentially get by between now until January with the midfield options that we have. But I would prefer, obviously, us to go out and sign a midfielder. So, I do feel as though we need to sign two rather than just the one between now and tomorrow evening. Christopher says, Tom, heard anything on our under-21 squad with regards to potential outgoings? Not really. The latest that I am kind of aware of is that there is still potential for those players that are playing. Keto Taylor-Hart is one of those that could potentially leave on loan. The club are open to seeing him leave on loan. Other potential players in the squad, Miguel Azeez, he's certainly available and open to a loan deal. He could move on. So, Azeez, Taylor-Hart, I think that there is potential for both of those players to go out on loan. Taylor-Hart did play in the under-21s game yesterday in a 2-0 win over Cambridge. Very impressive, by the way, pushing forward until the next round. So, yeah, Taylor Hart, Miguel Azeez. I'd be surprised if Matt Smith wasn't on the radar of a couple of clubs as well. He's gone on plenty of loans already. So, yeah, there is potential for some players to leave. As I said before at the start of the summer, I expected Ryan Alabiosu to leave on loan. He has now gone to Kilmarnock. So I think there is scope that more youngsters could go between now and the end of the window. Lynn says, Tom, I thought that Mudryk can also play midfield, as that is where he plays with Zinchenko for Ukraine. Yes, but more of an attacking kind of midfield role. You're not going to see him play box to box, Lynn, and that's kind of the midfielder that we still need in the squad. Dave says, Tom, did you see Clive's comments on Xhaka being able to cover at 6? No one in the Discord agreed with this. What's your take? I do reluctantly disagree with Clive. I love you, mate, but I just feel as though Xhaka at the 6th position, it's too immobile. It's too easily turned. And I like seeing what Xhaka's bringing to the left-sided midfield, central midfield role. Can he play DM? I mean, more capably than others, I suppose, in the squad. But I'd rather we went out and signed someone. But no, I didn't see the actual comment from Clive at all. I personally wouldn't want to see Xhaka there. I think that we have kind of moved on from that, and we've moved forwards with the number 6 role. Elneny, I'd prefer Elneny at 6 than Xhaka. I prefer him playing there. But if he's not available, Lokonga is the next in line. I expect Lokonga to play tonight. I actually have got a piece that's out right now talking about Ben White potentially at right back. Now, if you've been a long-term listener of the channel, you will absolutely know my reluctance to talk and even speak about the potential of seeing Ben White play in a number 6 position. I've wanted defenders to be defenders. I've wanted them to play in their specific roles. But actually, I spoke to Richie Mills, who is the Sussex Live reporter for Brighton and Hove Albion, to talk to him about kind of how White did playing in that number 6 role. And he did very well. And actually, he's played a lot more there than I think I gave him credit for at the beginning. I know that Dan Robert is laughing his head off at the fact I've kind of U-turned on this idea. But actually doing a little bit more research and digging into seeing Ben White play at the number 6 position, it is an option for Arsenal. Should they not sign anyone, Tomiyasu goes back into the right back position and Ben White moves into the number 6 role. It is something that Arsenal could consider. And I've left a link to that piece in today's video chat box, but you can find it on my page over at football.london. So go and check it out, because it is an interesting kind of look and deep dive into how much he's played in that role and the confidence that Richie has, who's a reporter for Brighton, has seen him play, in midfield for a Premier League side. So it's worth giving it a read. Robots will eat you says, Tom, be honest. Overall, Partey's transfer is a disappointing one, though. Frequently injured and injured for long. Highest paid player. What's the point? Is it disappointing? It's disappointing, yeah. Look, it's disappointing that he's been out for as long as he has been out. And I think he started somewhat of 58% of the games that he's been at Arsenal, which is deplorably poor. It's not his fault. He got a bad injury and he never was injured prior to coming to Arsenal. And I'd love to see some kind of inquiry into what on earth happened. But it's not his fault. I don't look at Partey and go, you've been dreadful. Because when he's been available, he's still, for me on paper, our best midfielder by a long distance. Prior to Jesus' arrival, I would have said he's our best player. And when he's played, he's been absolutely integral to our success. And without him, I don't think that we would have been challenging for the top 4 last season. So it's a real difficult one. But it's hard to not call it a disappointment when he's not been available for 42% of the games. It's very hard to argue that it's not been disappointing. Very hard indeed. Rancy said, Sambi's time to shine. He never had a proper chance as a 6. Maybe now is that time. I think he never had a real chance to play at 6 alongside Xhaka in the midfield. He was kind of thrown into the number 6 role when we played against Brighton at home, if you remember. Xhaka was at left back and he was exposed because he was kind of the only one there. And then we had 2 attack-minded number 8s in front of him. It didn't work. I hope that we see Lokonga thrive and flourish, but he has been doing well in a more advanced number 8 kind of role in pre-season. I just hope that we get tonight's selection right. If Zinchenko is back, that will definitely help us out. But let's be real, Aston Villa are a side that I think we've got enough, more than enough in the squad available to us that we should still be winning. I did a preview show with Max Stokes from the Villa on tour. Go and watch that show in our preview if you like. And they're not confident at all, Really not confident with what's going on. Abdul says, hello, Tom. We've done that one. No, we haven't. Another humble. I saw the words humble opinion and I thought we'd done it. But hello, Tom. In your humble opinion, which midfielder from the ones mentioned is most likely to join us this summer, as Mudryk looks like our main wide target? I agree that he looks like the most likely wide player. Who is the most likely midfielder? I'd still honestly say Yuri Tielemans would be the most likely, because he's just the one that clearly we have an interest in signing. Danilo, I just don't see happening. I can't see that deal being sorted from the perspective of trying to agree something with Palmeiras. Other central midfielders that we've been linked to just don't seem to be any kind of any sort of advanced. And I know things can change quickly, especially in the last couple of days, but nothing seems advanced with anyone else. So I would still say Yuri Tielemans is the most likely. However, if you were to ask me whether I'd put money on it happening, the answer would be no. I'm not confident of Tielemans happening at this moment in time. Let's go to Daniel. Says, as there is a game tonight, will it make it more difficult to sign players? Not particularly. The only way in which it makes it more difficult to sign players is that Mikel Arteta will, of course, be preoccupied with that. Edu is very much in charge of transfers. It's different for when it was Arsene Wenger that was in charge. Arsene Wenger was in charge of everything. You know, he was the one doing the calls. He was the one meeting with players all the time, speaking with players, speaking with agents, all of that stuff. He was doing so much of it. Whereas now Arteta's got kind of Richard Garlick and Edu that are all behind him. You've got the scouting network, the analysis guys. You've got intermediaries. Arsenal are a lot more in tune with player agents than we ever were before. So just because there's a game, it won't slow down Arsenal's potential. The only reason that it would slow it slightly is because Arteta can't necessarily jump on a phone call during the game. That's the only challenge that there is. But that should not put in place too much of an obstacle or a barrier in terms of Arsenal's late business. I don't think it will play too much of a part in this at all. Alistair says, can Mudryk play as a false nine? I've never seen him play there, but he does play so far advanced that potentially there's scope for it. But I wouldn't jump on that. I'd say, wait and see if he could potentially do that. But I wouldn't sit there and say, yeah, he can do that role, because I've never seen it happen. Let's go to Dan, who says, Tom, is there a chance Zinny and Xhaka will jump into midfield? Not ideal, but I'd like to see what Zinny can offer in the midfield. Yeah, there's an option that could happen. We're still not 100% sure if he'll be available tonight. He has trained. There's potential for him to be available. We'll wait and see. I kind of hope he does, because my defense in my fantasy team is looking light, with Reece James not being available, with Trippier's fitness not being 100%, and Zinchenko now as well. It's looking very light indeed. So I'm kind of hoping, fingers crossed, that Zinchenko comes back for multiple reasons, but most of all, of course, for Arsenal. But could he play in midfield? I'd like to see that as a potential possibility, but you would think that means that if he plays with Xhaka, Xhaka moves to that number 6 position, which I'm not necessarily keen on. So it's a catch-22 at this stage. We're going to keep answering your questions. I'm not working until a little bit later. Of course, I'll be covering the game for Football London. So do keep throwing in your questions. If you haven't dropped a like on the video, please do that as well. There's over 1,400 of you watching, which is our most viewed, I think, morning show so far as we get closer to deadline day. I also want to tell you, of course, that the show will be continuing on after deadline day. There'll be more 8 a.m. shows. It doesn't stop when the transfer window closes. So if you've got this used to being part of your morning routines and you're worried that it was going to end when the transfer window closes, don't be. The 8 a.m. show will continue forwards after we have finished the window, and we'll be talking about all the latest Arsenal news, catching you up on all the latest information in regards to injuries, still transfer links, of course, to players, updates on the youth team as well, and games going on. There's lots of midweek stuff to discuss. And I can't always do match reactions after the games because I'm usually working the game anyway. So a lot of match reactions, of course, will, take place at 8 a.m. So do not go anywhere. Let's go to the Harry Thomas, who says, question, Tom, can I ask you, do you know where Tottenham pumped in 150 million into their accounts with Arsenal? Can't we do that due to FFP? It's a good question. And to be honest, my understanding of the finances behind it are not enough that I would be able to confidently tell you. I know that there was the story that came out about them injecting 150 million pounds into the club to what they would basically be able to spend. Arsenal are owned through a complete ownership by KSE. So any of the Arsenal's money is KSE's money, which is something that I think a lot of people kind of misinterpret. The club, if it spends money, is KSE spending money. It's like if you buy a business, say you buy, I don't know, a restaurant, right? You've bought the restaurant outright. You own 100% of that restaurant. That means that the cutlery is yours. You have to pay the wages of the staff, so the wage bill is on you. The equipment's on you. All of that stuff is on you. If you upgrade your restaurant, if you upgrade the seats, upgrade the infrastructure, all of that, you are investing in that. It's the same situation with the football club. If Arsenal spend money on a player, KSE are therefore investing. So Arsenal have spent close to 100 million this summer. It's the same as saying KSE have invested around 100 million in the club this summer because they own it. It's not like them when they were majority shareholders in the club. It was the club's money. They were a majority shareholder and owned part of it. But since 2018, when they fully took over, any money that's spent by the club is invested by KSE. So if we spend more money this summer, which there is an expectation that we still could, it will be the ownership spending the money that they own, that the club has, because they've bought it. I hope that makes sense. It's a little complicated. I understand that, Tom, but can't we somehow inject money to stay away from FFP? I mean, more so. It's not... FFP is very complicated. It's about kind of the losses that you have over the course of so many years. It doesn't work that way. So Spurs aren't avoiding FFP by injecting money into it. They would avoid FFP by, revenue, by sales, by making money, by, organically making money rather than injecting money into the club. That's not how you avoid FFP. Arsenal need to get better with player sales. They need to be smarter with their spending. They need to make more revenue, and they need to stop losing money. That's the ultimate kind of measure, is that we need to make sure that over the course of a 3-year period, we aren't continually making losses. So that's the difference. I hope that makes sense. It sounds like it has. I'm not saying that that's gospel, so don't take it as gospel, but that's my personal understanding of kind of how it works. Let's go scroll up a little bit more. Ben says, what about Artemelo on loan? I will be shocked if you don't see a link to Artemelo pop up in the next 2 days. I will be shocked. Surely a link to Artemelo is going to creep through the grapevine and down to Arsenal. I would be surprised if we did that. Let's see if that happens. Francois is about 1,500 of you watching. We've only got 230 likes. Come on, Gunners. Is that true? Do we actually only have 130 odd likes on the video? Wow, we only do. Come on. Don't freeload, people. We do this show every morning. We get up early. We put it all together. Show your appreciation and drop a like on the video. It really does help us out. Sadiq says, Tom, why don't we get players on the cheap from the Championship? Yeah, the cheap from the Championship doesn't necessarily exist anymore, especially for a player that's going to be good enough. Your bargains, for your Andrew Robertsons as well, people are a lot more aware of the quality in the Championship. Look at the money that Championship teams spend these days. You just go through and see how much has been spent by Championship clubs. They are spending a lot of money on players and spending big on them. It's not cheap, guaranteed quality. If you want to get quality players from the league below, you're still going to have to buy them. You're still going to spend. I mean, Ismail Assar was going between 25 and 30 million quid from Watford, and there was nearly an agreement with, I want to say, Aston Villa, I think it was. That fell through eventually, but 25 million pounds is hardly cheap, especially for a player that has got injury problems like Ismail Assar, that's been relegated. There's not necessarily that same kind of guarantee of getting quality on the cheap from the Championship. It's not guaranteed anymore. It's just not happening. You look at Buendia going to Aston Villa for 30+ million. It's really not. It's not going to happen. Peter says, I've seen a report linking us with a £13 million move for Julian Weigl. Would he be a good option for us? Maybe 3 or 4, 5 even years ago. There's an exciting talent. Not for me now. There's a reason I think he moved to Benfica from Dortmund. It's just not a profile that I'm that big of a fan of right now. Let's go to Wilson, who says, which winger, and good to see you back in the chat, by the way, Wilson, long-time listener of the channel. Which winger do you prefer, Neto or Gakpo? Neto, personally. I know Gakpo scored a ton of goals, but there's always that question mark about transition, about the fact he's more of a left winger than a right winger, and Neto can play on both sides very comfortably and in the middle. He's more versatile than Gakpo. He's left-footed, playing on the right-hand side as well, the same as Saka, so you've got that inversion. I would lean towards Neto. And I think that Gakpo is still going to cost you upwards of 35, 40 million quid. So I would personally go for that kind of figure for Neto. But I think it won't be either of them that ends up at the club. Rail says, by the way, TC, saw a pic of you and the wife on Insta and got to congratulate you for the fine transfer business. You've definitely upgraded your squad. I mean, we say that. We've been together for 10 years. So it's upgrade the infrastructure in terms of the metal involved. But other than that, yeah, thank you so much. It was a great day on Friday, and thank you so much everybody that sent you kind messages. It means a lot, and yeah, it really shows kind of the community feel that we've got at the channel. Speaking of a community feel that we've got at the channel, I look forward to meeting as many of you as possible on Friday at the Ridley Road Social Club. Do come and join us. I'm going to keep answering your questions. We're not ending the show here. Just a quick update for those that missed it. We're live on Friday in North London. Do come and join us. Link in the description for tickets. Make sure you get hold of them. Half of them have already sold. Do make sure you grab them. Let's go to Snaggies, who says, could we try and White in Partey's position? Yes, we could. And go and read my article that I've written this morning that's out now on football.london. I'll leave another link to it in the chat box where I talk a lot at length about the potential of playing Ben White in Thomas Partey's role. So go and have a look at that one. Stephen says, Tom, injuries are inevitable. Are we overplaying the meltdown? It's a good question. For those that may not kind of get their head around it. Well, the idea of this is that we overplay injuries all the time. We worry about injuries all the time. They are always going to happen. You know, Partey has got a long history of injuries. Players like Tierney have got a long history of injuries. Even Ben White is gradually seeing injuries creep into his game. Tomiyasu, of course, has got a lot of injuries to his name. Smith Rowe has got a lot of injuries to his name. Ødegaard has got injuries to his name. They're always going to happen. It's about making sure that you've got that depth, that strength in depth to deal with the problems. Arsenal have, worked really hard at adding lots of quality throughout the squad. They've brought in, they brought back Saliba, of course. They'd already signed White for 50 odd million. They've brought in versatility. White can play centre back, right back, maybe midfield. Tomiyasu can play centre back, right back, left back. Saliba can play right back if you wanted him to, and he did that for Marseille. Zinchenko can play left back, centre mid, defensive mid, attacking mid, left midfield if you wanted him to. Ødegaard can play at cam, at 8, at right wing. Fabio Vieira, right wing, left wing, false 9, centre mids, attacking mid. Smith Rowe, left wing, centre mid, cam. Martinelli, left wing, right wing, striker. Jesus, left wing, right wing, striker. And Nketiah, striker, left wing. We've got so much versatility in this team that it means that depth is important, and you need numbers for depth, but also you need players that can cover in multiple positions so that we can deal with those things. There's always kind of the obsession with making sure you bring in more players. But that obsession sometimes bleeds into naivety, in my opinion, because you often find yourselves going, sign that player, get them in, we're sure. And the reality is that actually being more sensible and reining yourself in and not jumping on a transfer for the sake of it can be more beneficial for you in the future, of both financially and competitively, and for the development of existing players in the squad. We all want a new toy. We all want to sign new players. We love it. It's a great moment. Trust me, as a guy who does a transfer show once, even twice a day at times, I love it when Arsenal sign new players. I love researching players. I love seeing them join the club. But you have to be sensible. You've got to be measured about how you look at it. I think Arsenal need to sign 2 players for me still between now and the end of the window. That's not a contradiction. I just think we need to replace what we've lost in Pepe. And of course, Reece Nelson, I just don't think he's up to it right now. And I think we need to sign a wide player that can also cover potentially Jesus' injury in the middle. And I think that a midfield signing now that Partey and Elneny are both injured and are going to have more injuries you can imagine throughout the course of the season, it was needed before I even think that. We were campaigning for a central midfielder. It's become even more prioritized. I don't think we need a right back. Some people do. I don't. There was always an argument that potentially a left-footed centre-back was needed. I've leaned away from that, having seen now Gabriel's injury record is good. Discipline, not so good. Saliba is versatile. Tomiyasu is versatile. White is versatile. I think we have enough. Who knows? I could be wrong. When the competitions come thick and fast, maybe I end up getting proven wrong. But I just think at the moment we're fairly comfortable. Harvey says, did you see, and thank you for the donation, did you see Mudryk's tattoo? It says only Jesus or Jesus, I imagine, on his neck. No, but what I did say and what I haven't mentioned is that apparently, and according to my good friend Andrew, who did our tactical breakdown for Mudryk, he didn't like a tweet about a potential agreement with Arsenal. I didn't mention that. That's very transfer window, but he did like an Instagram post, I think it was, not a tweet, about his move potentially to Arsenal. So, I mean, we love to buy into these things as much as we can, but who knows? We'll have to wait and see. Please don't spam the chat box. I don't answer questions if you hit them over and over and over again, and it will be timing you out. Let's go to Joshua, who says, if we do not sign a midfielder, that is borderline criminal. We know about Partey's injury issues. Borderline criminal is slightly hyperbolic, I'm not going to lie. However, it would be naive, I think, to not sign a midfielder this window. The question is always, who is that going to be? Are you going to be able to find someone good enough that gives you the quality? And then the contradiction, as pointed out in the comment section yesterday, which I responded to, was that while saying, how are you going to find someone good enough to compete with Partey? I don't necessarily want to see backups at the club. But at the same time, you've then got to find someone that's willing to be a competitor, that's willing to sit on the bench now and again. You look at Yves Bissouma at Spurs, for instance, currently sitting on the bench every single game. We've got to find someone that's as good as they can be, but also willing to realise the competition that they face and the realistic kind of reality of the fact that they will be on the bench a lot. And that's tough. That's really, really tough to find someone that can fulfill all of those kind of necessities. It's really, really hard. So whilst it is a contradiction, absolutely, it is the reality. It is the situation we find ourselves in. We can't sign someone for the sake of it. We have to find someone that's going to be quality and good enough to stay in the squad for the long term. But at the same time, you've got to try and find someone that can, be content knowing that they will be on the bench now and again. Aaron says, take Kante from Chelsea. Is he not injured right now? I think he's got injury problems. I know I said before I might have, but I think the injury again this season has kind of proven that point to be off the pace. King says, we've been linked with RC Lons is for Fofana. Have you seen or heard anything about this? Yes, I saw that link. I think it was Media Foot Marseille or something like that did it. I don't think that's realistic. I don't think Lons would be interested in selling Fofana for anything other than a silly transfer fee at this point in the window. I don't think Fofana is realistic. So I wouldn't get your hopes up about him. He's a very good player. I'd absolutely take him, but I don't think he's realistic at all at this stage. Ollie Polis says, will Vieira make his debut tonight? Potentially. It's a midweek game. I think there's going to be more changes, more subs. Could we see Vieira get his debut? I hope so. I would love to see a bit of Vieira play, but I think he is still slightly behind the likes of Smith Rowe and Nketiah in the pecking order for attacking changes right now. Let's see what happens. Manouche says, Tom, can you explain how the performances of Breuer and Gallagher fell so far down after coming back to Chelsea when they were superb last season? I love it, but I can't understand this drop. I can give you the best explanation that I can give, and that is that at Palace and at Southampton, Breuer and Gallagher stood out as stars in those teams. They were the focus. They were looked toward as a target. If you were playing the ball into midfield, you found Gallagher at Palace. If you were playing the ball up top to Southampton, you were finding Breuer. And when they move into other teams and bigger teams, that isn't the case anymore. They don't get the ball as much. They might get more opportunities as a striker, but I think we've seen that Breuer's played, 15 minutes before he made his sub yesterday. And to be honest, looked okay. He made a couple of chances he had into the box, but he's a target man. So it's not particularly the way that Chelsea want to play with a striker like Breuer. But Gallagher in particular is one of the big reasons why I worry about a move for Zaha, because Zaha, despite how good he is, stands out in that Palace team because he's the star. If he comes to Arsenal, he won't necessarily be the star of that team, and he might not necessarily have the same opportunities and therefore the same frequency of chances to show what he does at Palace. He might not. You look at William Saliba, comes back from Marseille after shining and has shone still in this team. And that's why there's so much effort that goes into the prep behind transfer decision-making, is because you not only have to find a player that's going to be good enough, but someone that you also think can translate what they're doing in one place to another place. And the external factors like coaching, system, positioning, players around you, formation, structure, all of that. If 1, 2, 3 or more of those factors aren't aligned with their coming when they arrive at Arsenal, it can have a really detrimental impact on how that player transitions, on how they perform. Seeing a player do well in one place does not guarantee them doing well in another place. And I think with Nicolas Pepe, it's a really good example of seeing someone playing a counter-attacking Lille side that had a lot of space to hit on the break, that didn't have to play a possession-based football that then had to then take on 3, 4 players at a time, work in tighter spaces in the Premier League. He suited Lille. He suited that team in that Galtier system. It worked. And at Nice, who knows? It may work at Nice this season. But at Arsenal, it was a completely different environment. And despite the fact he got a fair amount of goals and assists, stat padded, in my opinion, because of the Europa League exploits, it just never was going to succeed in the same way, especially in a Mikel Arteta team, especially in a team that is all about pressing, all about energy, all about tracking back and intercepting and working backwards and defending, quick interplay of football, vision, timing of runs. It just didn't suit Pepe. And so that's why he ultimately, in my view, failed. And that's why we need to make sure that if we invest money in a player, that they have to fit. Look at Gabriel Jesus. Gabriel Jesus is the archetypal striker for this Arteta team. He is the perfect number 9. And for so long, so many of us, I think, thought we needed a target man, someone to get on the end of crosses, a Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Patrick Schick, as a player that I really kind of campaigned for a while. And actually, when you look at what Jesus brings, despite him being very similar to the profiling in Nketiah that we already have, in terms of kind of being smaller, better with the ball at his feet, a clinical finisher, all of that stuff, nowhere near in regards to ability. Jesus is levels and levels above. But stylistically, he fits exactly what we needed. And that's why we're seeing such an impact from him at this point in the season. Hopefully that is something that goes on inevitably and doesn't end. So I'm really hopeful of that. Anyway, thank you so much, guys, for tuning into the show this morning. Slightly longer show than we usually do. And I'll endeavour to do another longer one tomorrow morning, considering it is deadline day. I'll be live after the game, not here, but over on the Arsenal Way. Link, as always, is in the video description. Do join us on Friday for our live show. I'm going to keep pressing this. It's only a limited time, so I might as well keep pressing it. Link to information about where, when, how you can come is in the video description as well. Make sure that you drop a like on the video before you leave. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will see you a little bit later on today. Have a fantastic Wednesday. And fingers crossed Arsenal can bring home 3 points and we can talk about that at more length and detail tomorrow. See you soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.